Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here with you guys. This topic, what is it to fail spiritually? Kind of an intense question. At the farm right now, we're kind of moving towards Christmas already. It's the first week of December, and we had our Christmas party yesterday. And I don't know if I've ever felt so ready for the Christmas spirit as I do this year. It feels like in my life, and then when I look around, it is the essence of our lives as devotees is the spirit of Christmas. And kind of when we hit the beginning of December, it's like, okay, it's time to focus and move towards the Christ consciousness. So that's kind of the spirit that I've been thinking about a lot, the thoughts that are going on in my mind. And then I get this topic again, what is it to fail spiritually? And it's a great topic, honestly, and I know that I need it to ask this question. But I did glance ahead and I saw like next week is living in the presence of God. And then the next week is the Star of Bethlehem. And then finally it's the divine ascendancy, which is Christ's promise to us all at Christmas and what his birth really represents. So before we get there, we have to do the work, is what I'm saying. And we ask these questions because the path is actually, it's real. We affirm the highest and we know the directions we're going in, but we have to do the work. And so a part of this process is the reality that we're all going to drop sometimes. We're all going to fail at something. And that's not just the spiritual path, it's every aspect of life. It could be school or work, our relationships, anything we're aspiring to have be whole and to be true and real. As we aspire towards that, it requires us to grow. And like Nivriti kind of spoke of last week, this topic of karma, what we start to realize as we're on the spiritual path is that as we do grow, things come out in us that need to be purified, that need to be healed. And this can feel like failure when these things come up. When we fall flat on our face, we can feel like a failure. And part of the amazing thing about this reading and the promise that all the saints have given us is they show us in their own lives, it's okay, that this is the process we go through, that we will fall down. And that that our choice is actually not whether or not we fail in the steps, because we're going to trip up. It's that we keep getting up, and we get up again, and we don't lay on the ground. I had this image to me come this week of like falling over, and then just like how pitiful it is, like we fall over, and we just want to lay there like face down for a while. We're like, I'm not ready to get up. I think I'm going to just like fail for a while. I feel like a failure. I don't want to do this. And then eventually, God kind of drops some seeds in us and we get the strength back and we start to get up and we stand up and we want to face the light again and say, I'm ready. I feel a little bit stronger. Maybe something happened. I don't really know. Maybe something good happened in me. But we start to realize, and especially in hindsight, that there was a purpose for that failure, that it wasn't just an accident. And we can't always figure that out immediately. So I don't want to encourage us to go crazy in our minds trying to figure out every lesson from everything that goes wrong in our mind. We need to let that be the natural unfoldment of us giving our hearts to God. And that's the door of my heart. This path can be very simple when we kick the mind out of there and we just say, God, I just want to give you my love, and then we can get answers we need. When I was reflecting on this idea of failure and what it really means in a deeper sense, some stories were kind of popping into my mind of times that I've fallen myself or that I've seen other people fall, and then how it works out so amazing, how in the moment it can seem like the worst thing. And this one, I was actually talking to Karen Buckner in the herb shop the other night, and Glenda had returned to the farm this week. Woohoo, Glenda, I hope you're watching. And she had been telling Karen all these farm stories in the first few years, which Glenda knew because she came up there towards the beginning. So she always is telling stories on us. And So then I was like, oh, she told you stories about us, huh? So it gave me a little window to remember how Glenda came to the farm. And I remember we had a celebration at Haven House for some kind of party over there. And it was like the very end of it. It was successful. It was fun. Glenda was not yet living at the farm. We had been talking to her for at least a year about the prospects of her moving up. And she tripped, and she sprained her ankle really bad. And that wasn't fun in the moment. Nobody thought that was funny. It was not a good thing. But gradually, as an hour passed, and Glenda couldn't just go home because her ankle was so badly sprained, she decided she was going to stay the night at the farm. And then that one day turned into 2 days, and suddenly it gave us these little windows to slip away to the house in Everett and start cleaning it out because we knew we needed to sell this house. And so she stayed at the farm to heal. And then we made a special delivery at one point that was her cat, Evander. And once the cat landed, Glenda officially landed at the farm. And it was amazing. It's amazing to reflect on these things because it was not a good thing outwardly to fall and hurt yourself and be basically crippled for a week. And yet it was exactly what needed to happen for her to come and become kind of our rock on the farm. She came and brought so much joy for tomatoes and so much joy that is Glenda, and I'm so grateful for that. But I see how we fall down so that we can actually go in the direction we're supposed to be going in, because so often we just don't know. So we see this deeper purpose that's always happening in these failures, and we see that often in hindsight. Our job is to start to realize that this purpose is there whether we know it or not, and this is faith. That as we start to look at our life and how things have unfolded, we start to recognize that there is this plan unfolding, whether we know it or not. And our job is to keep the faith in what's happening, to say yes to life, to live in the moment, to do the things God is giving us, because it gets really easy to get discouraged. That's when we start to feel like we failed, we get discouraged and we don't have the strength to do the things God gives us so we can grow. Swami in the Essence of the Bhagavad Gita commentary, Arjuna's kind of whimpering to Krishna, as is a common theme. And Krishna says there's 3 types. No, I'm sorry, this is Swami's commentary on Arjuna's whimpering, that there's 3 types of failure. And I thought this was very interesting. I'd never read this before. There's 3 types of failure. And Swami says it's not failure in our spiritual life. He says failure in our ability to practice yoga, failure in our yoga practice. So those things that when we fail and it takes us away from what we know is important and real, it takes us away from practicing yoga, doing our techniques, feeling devotion. And the first one is just when we, in a lifetime he's talking about, we just straight up quit. We say, nope, the world actually has what I was looking for after all. And we just go crawling back to the world and we say, you know what, I think that I would rather just have a job and a house. And we don't care anymore. And I just am gonna venture the guess we've all made this choice in different lifetimes, that at some point the zest and the zeal for the spiritual life awakens in us, and then it gets squashed by our own indifference. And we just go back to the way we lived before. The second one he says is that relatively admirably, we just kind of die on the battlefield. That we're still trying to fight, but we lose the strength and we just don't make it. And so the battlefield, that's it. And the third one is that we actually go through the whole incarnation still giving it our best and we just come up a little short. That's still a failure in our yoga practice. But that this continues and it goes on to the next life. And in all of these, this underlying thread continues, that it doesn't just end with that life, but that, like we've talked about the last 2 weeks with reincarnation and karma, that it's going to continue. So all the spiritual efforts we make have their place. Nothing is lost. when we give it to God. So I thought that was interesting, and I just wanted to mention that. I think this concept kind of that this reading represents really too is this idea that life is not random at all, that it's not an accident, that it's actually our classroom, and this is how we learn. And I want to take one step back and say, it might be that some of you in here right now feel like I'm not failing, that you just feel great. And so I would say just take these little seeds then and hold on to them for the next time that it comes full circle, because this ebb and flow of life is a promise that we're all going to go through. The other aspect of this is what Master says with failure. It's not an external thing. That all the circumstances in our lives are actually neutral. Very interesting statement. I'm pretty sure we can all identify some circumstances that don't feel neutral to us. But he said they're all neutral. That in fact, it's not the circumstances themselves that have any weight over us, that it is our reaction to them. And if we take that thread a little further, it's not just our reaction. What gives us the reaction? It's our underlying attitudes about life that make things what they are. I had a conversation with Aaron a couple days ago. Aaron and Cora were at the farm for part of the summer, and they have had quite an adventure, not really knowing what they're doing, but now they're headed back to Mexico. And they had some time at the village and then in Ananda, Los Angeles. So I was interested to hear how it was going for them to get back to his homeland in Mexico. And when I talked to them, they were now in Tijuana, where it was going to cost them $2,500 to drive their American car back to their home with no hope really of doing that. So the first step was, well, maybe we can buy a car in Tijuana. And then he said, do you know what cars are like in Tijuana? So there's a lot of hills here, and they're Mexican cars, and I don't know if it would make it. So he was basically breaking down the situation, and I offered my sympathy for that. And he said, oh no, everything is great. We're doing great. Everything is awesome. And I was like, you have somewhere to stay? And he said, oh yeah, we found the best Airbnb. But it was interesting because my immediate projection was to feel bad for them at the new situation that they found themselves in. But I saw immediately in their attitude that it was fine, that their attitude makes the reality. And so I'm imagining they were even having fun, having lattes. Who knows what they were doing, those two, but I just thought that was a great example of the circumstances are going to be what they're going to be. But we can still have the right attitude underlying everything that's going on. We can still know that it's from God. And I think we can all just take that into our life right now and know there's some challenge, there's something that's come up, and we can know that it's from God, even if we don't understand it. In the festival every week, there's the line, we've exchanged suffering and sorrow for calm acceptance and joy. The coin of man's redemption has been exchanged. And this is such a powerful seed thought, because so many of the saints that we know and love have emphasized so strongly this idea of suffering and the failure that suffering entails being the pathway forward. And it's not that that's untrue, but it's what we do with it when it happens that actually matters. That calm acceptance and joy, I kind of was meditating on that this week, and I thought, God, sometimes it's really hard just to start with calm acceptance of a circumstance that genuinely sucks. And just as I had that thought, this wave of peace came over me. And it reminded me of something Swami had said in Raja Yoga, which is that peace has to be our bottom line. That at one point in his life, he made the decision that peace would be his bottom line. As soon as our peace of mind becomes affected, then we have to step back from the situation. and we have to get our peace back. Because how can we expand into calmness, into joy, this calm acceptance and joy, if we don't even have a peace of mind? It's a really interesting practice. And I find that if we have the foundation of peace, then yeah, we can build right up the spine into all the others. But we have to keep the peace inside of ourselves, no matter what's going on. There was something else I wanted to say about peace, but it's not with me. I'm not peaceful enough. I think I'll just move on. You know, one thing that has occurred to me as we're moving into this season, and just with the challenges that are inherent in all of our lives, is that sometimes we can forget that we all have a role to play, that we all have work to do, not for ourselves necessarily, our little selves, but for everyone else. And I love this image at the farm of all of us as like little brothers and sisters in God. It's something that's really helped me to relate to everyone, is that we're all just little children, and we're just doing playing all these little games, and we have all of our little toys. And it's just so sweet to think of ourselves like that. And it reminded me, you know, this idea that we all have a part to play of, this is gonna seem like a totally random story, but it came to me so clearly, was when I was a kid, I was in elementary school and I loved basketball. And in like 3rd or 4th grade, we had a really good team. And I loved the team. I loved sports because I loved being on a team. And at one point we were getting our butts kicked pretty good. And it was like I was passively almost watching us get our butts kicked in this game. And then something woke up when we fell behind in me that like, I have to do something. I can't just be passive and wait for everyone else to do everything. I have to be the best player right now, whatever that means. And I just woke up in the middle of that game and I was like on fire. And then I realized everybody else was with me. And it was such an interesting experience that has never left me, because when I woke up in myself, it helped everyone else to wake up. It's very interesting. So I think I want to remind us all, and everybody watching online, that we all have a really important role to play. It can be very easy for us to fall into our own failures and what we can't do. That's a trap. The point of the failures is to wake us up to the role that we are here to play, and to play it, and to love it, and to give everything we've got, to build our strength for the climb. Because the promise of this season isn't that we're going to wallow in failure forever. It's that we're going to arrive at Christ consciousness in ourselves, in each other. This is the one true reality. So I think when I think about this topic, the main thing that just comes to me over and over again is don't give up. Don't quit. We have to give ourselves to God. And that's really the one choice we can make over and over again. When I have gone through my things this year and processed so many things, it's like it reaches a point where I just say, I don't understand. I'm turning it off the thoughts, and I'm going to give my heart to God. And that's the only choice we have. And this door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. This is our sadhana. This is our every moment we get to think this. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. This is the soul's call. This is us calling to God, just for once, come to me. What's the next line? Will thy days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away? I mean, this is the anguish that we can go through on this path, waiting to arrive at the goal. And then night and day, night and day, night and day I search, I look for thee. This is every day and every night we come back to this place, this point of intuitive perception in the heart, that we're looking for God, that we're calling on God. It's really not complicated. I know that sometimes we want it to be, but it's really not when we arrive at these simple understandings. And so every time we feel ourselves start to go down, that's our choice, is to just turn ever more towards that light. And the darker it gets in the world around us, in our own consciousness, the more that little candle flame, the brighter it gets, the more we can just turn to that little source of light and go into it. So everything is from God. Everything is good, and we're all going to get there. So let's enjoy December and bask in the spirit of Christ consciousness. And the failure is now behind us. And next week we get to live in the presence of God. Actually, right now we do. So, Jai Guru, I'm going to close with a reading from Whispers from Eternity that kind of summarizes this. With the torch of our devotion, blaze away our dark indifference. Divine Mother, let every slap of correction administered by Thee wring from us, Thy children, only cries for Thy love. Change any moans of suffering we utter into unceasing wails to be lifted comfortingly onto Thy cosmic lap. O Divine Mother, teach us, even when we are bludgeoned by pain, to sing only Thy exulting songs of joy. Melt our pride in Thy purifying furnace of all necessary trials, to transmute the lead of unseemly arrogance into the pure gold of humility. Divine Mother, clear out the brooding slum of our selfishness, wherein crouch, huddled in pain, the starving, ill-clad urchins of our ignorance. Build there, instead, Thy temple of omnipresence, wherein noble votaries of devotion, solemn reverence, and aspiring love can worship Thee with pure hearts, dressed in the simple, clean garments of single-minded intention. In that golden temple, softly echoing Thy whispered inner guidance, Thy devotees will offer before Thy altar the frankincense of unceasing remembrance, as they sing to Thee their soul chants. O Divine Mother, we lay eagerly at Thy feet all the fresh-cut flowers of our devotion. Our humble prayer to Thee is this: convert the little altar of our united hearts into the blazing light of Thy omnipresence. Divine Mother, be Thou the only love of our souls. Ignite our damp wood of earthliness with the flame of infinity. Let the torch of our own devotion blaze in the dark forest of indifference, restlessness, and ignorance. Inflame our minds with Thy thoughts, our hearts with Thy love, our souls with Thy eternal joy. And we will now sing